Apple results always interesting. They give us just enough detail that we can see how a lot of things are going. The iPhone number, I think, since we all know, since you broke the story that they've got these new phones coming out, I would have expected that to slow down a little bit.
Yeah, they started getting into that time of the year where people start holding off on buying the new models and wait for the new ones. You probably have friends who are asking you, when's this new phone going to come out?
You get those annoying calls all the time. Well, when is the new phone coming out? So Gene Munster, our friend Gene Munster, was on the show last night, and he put out a note yesterday or today, I can't remember, yesterday I guess, that was speculating the actual date of the product release based on Apple's guidance for next quarter.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to pinpoint the exact day, obviously, but for the past 2 years, September has been the month when they release them. There's usually an announcement when they come out, when they show it, and then maybe a week or 10 days later they put the device on the market. And what they bank on is a really big kind of Hollywood opening where you have those lines that they've had in the past, and those can show up in the quarter results that are now here. And it's all leading up to the holiday, which is really when that's the really blockbuster time of year.
Yeah, his date was September 26th, which he was sort of penciling out the numbers and
how much down to see if he's
which
right.
You know, it's like trying to land a 747 on an aircraft carrier, figuring that they're going to slow down one business and pick up the next business, and what day that would happen, what the numbers mean by that. One of the numbers that really jumped out at me, and I don't know if you looked at this all, was the iPad number. I mean, the iPad sales really hitting a wall. iPad sales down, I think this is the third of the last 4 quarters. We've seen a decline year over year in iPad sales. What's going on there?
The market has slowed down, particularly in the U.S. and in Western Europe. And while Apple said that they're seeing more growth in China and India, in the Middle East, that's just not enough to make up for the areas like the U.S. and Europe, which is really where the device has been strongest. And the market is getting more saturated. People are holding on to these devices longer. Smartphones are as they get bigger, are taking on more of the responsibilities that people are using for a tablet. And laptops, are still doing well. Mac sales were great.
Mac sales were strong too, although the raw numbers, I went back and looked about 3 or 4 years ago, there were still more Macs being sold than there are today. So it's growth off of a slowdown. But I thought it was, Tim Cook in particular, I wonder at what point when we're going to sort of stop saying these are the things that were in the pipeline when Steve Jobs died, and this really is Tim Cook's company now. Are we kind of at that right now?
I think so. I think there's a lot of anticipation for this new batch of products that are coming out, particularly around the wearable device and the sort of design changes that might be there in the new iPhones. But really, I mean, this company, for the time being, is really dependent on the iPhone. I mean, there's estimates about a wearable device, if it comes out, if they were to sell a huge amount of them, it would still only generate about 5% of the revenue that they had last year. I mean, Morgan Stanley came out with some estimates that kind of show you that just the scale of how big Apple's business is, and it's largely driven by the iPhone. And so as the iPhone goes, so goes Apple.
Yeah, I mean, I went back and looked. The iPad in its first year had $5 billion in revenue, but back then the company was a $65 billion revenue company. Now it's a $170 billion company. We're looking at the year-over-year growth, or I'll call it shrinkage, in iPad sales. But a new business that did $5 billion would be a drop in the bucket for Apple now, even if it was so if a wearable device was as expensive as an iPad, which it won't be, probably, and was as successful as an iPad, which it won't be, probably, it'll be tiny for this giant company, even if it has billions in revenue.
Yeah, I mean, the iPhone, how they really benefit from here is the subsidies. I mean, the customers are not paying how much Apple gets typically, particularly in the U.S., where you can pay $200 for a device, but the carriers are paying much, much more for that. I mean, the price per phone that Apple's getting is over $600, and so when you sell 35 million of those, that's real money.